Hey everybody, Coach Elijah here with Coach Amy. We are talking about 3 common issues that we see with mountain bikers and imbalances that we also see, as well as movements that we're gonna do in our mountain bike strength camp to help with these issues. So the biggest thing we see, number 1, is poor shoulder mobility and stability. So being on the handlebars all day long will lead to this rounded forward shoulder, and that lack of shoulder mobility is going to lead to instability. So we can see this with overhead mobility, lacking, not being able to get our arms all the way overhead. And then if Amy grabs the dowel and does a little dowel test, because she tries to do pass-throughs, we'll see she's got to bend her elbows to get through. So this is issue number 1 that we see. Issue number 2, we're going to have Coach hop up on the bike. And we will see a lot of quad dominance or lack of posterior chain working. So we'll have Coach pedal, and we can see her knees tracking inside of her ankles. This is a telltale sign that she is working her quads only. We're leaving a lot of power on the table. And then number 3, if we come back to the side profile view, we will see spending all day in this position at a closed hip is going to create a lot of tension and tightness through the hip flexors and the psoas. When this stuff gets tight and shortened, it can make hamstrings really tight, and it can put a lot of stress on the low back, creating low back pain. So these are 3 common issues we see. We're now going to go over things that we're going to do in our strength camp that are going to help alleviate these issues. Okay, fixing issue number 1, poor shoulder mobility and stability. The first movement we're going to go over is that pass-through that we were showing you earlier. So if you have poor shoulder mobility and it is hard to get through, you got to bend your elbows. The best place to start is to get wider until you are wide enough that you can get all the way through and work through a little sticking point. Okay, this will be a common move that we're going to do in the gym to open those shoulders up, work on that mobility. That's number 1. Movement number 2, band pull-aparts. So this is a great one to activate that upper back. So straight arms, straight wrist. Coach Amy's going to pull and squeeze the upper back, and she's going to work through 10 to 20 reps of this. Really good for helping pull the shoulders back, get that upper back active and ready to go. And then movement number 3, a strength movement we will do often is the barbell bent over row. She's going to approach it like a deadlift. She's going to set up with a nice neutral spine. She's going to pick it up, and then she's going to hinge until back is parallel to the ground, and she's going to pull those elbows back and up into the belly. And we're squeezing the upper back as we pull. Again, this is another movement that's going to pull those shoulders back and help our posture and our mobility. So those are 3 things that we will do for shoulder mobility and stability when you're here at the strength camp. Okay, moving on to number 2, working on our quad dominance and movements that we'll do to alleviate that. Okay, common issue number 2, quad dominance and a lack of activation in our posterior chain. Here are a few movements that we're going to do in our strength camp that are going to help alleviate this issue. Movement number 1 is a good prep movement for a lower body day. It's going to be a banded side step. So coach is going to get her band on her arches. She's going to sit in a squat, and she's going to take these little controlled steps, about 5 to the right, 5 to the left. This is going to fire up her abductors and get her glutes ready to go. This is a good prep movement, something that we'll do before we squat, deadlift, any of those things. So movement number 2 is a rear elevated single leg RDL. This one is challenging. She's going to get her rear foot up on a bench. The front knee sets some knee bend, and then she's going to hinge at the hip. Back stays nice and flat. Hamstring is getting a lot of stress. We love this one because it's a unilateral movement. It's 1 limb at a time. It's going to help balance out our bodies. Good job. Okay, and our last one, moving back to the barbell, a big compound lift that we will do in here is the deadlift. So coach is going to set up, feet under hips, grip outside legs. She's going to set that spine nice and neutral. She's going to breathe in, squeeze. She's simply going to stand, drive hips through, reach hips back as she returns to the floor. Great posterior exercise. Everything from your traps down to your heels are working. This is an awesome movement for bikers. Okay. Moving on to number 3, tight hips, tight psoas, some mobility drills that we can do to alleviate those issues. Okay, fixing issue number 3, tight hips and psoas. Here are 3 mobility drills to do to help open you up and alleviate some of that tension. Number 1 is the couch stretch. This can be done with a bench, a wall, a couch at home. Coach Amy's going to get 1 foot elevated on the bench with that same knee down. And the key here is cueing a nice tight core. Okay, she's staying nice and neutral. If she wants to add to this stretch, she can reach a hand up. Good, and then your other option is to come forward on this foot and lunge forward and find where that feels good on the hip flexor. Spend about 1 minute to 2 minutes on each side. Come out of that stretch nice and slow. Movement number 2, this is going to be our up dog pose. So laying on the ground prone, she's going to keep her hips on the ground, push her chest up off the ground. And the key here is breathing nice and deep, relaxing into this, same idea, 1 to 2 minutes, open you back up. And then number 3, we'll give her this trigger point release ball, and she's going to locate her psoas. So the psoas runs on either side of the abdomen. Okay, so she's gonna hunt and look for that, find where it's tight, and once she does, she's just gonna breathe and try to melt onto that ball. Again, another 1 to 2 minutes, try to release that psoas. It's gonna immediately affect how your low back and your hamstrings feel. So that's fixing issue number 3. Give these a try. Come on into our mountain bike strength camp. This is where we're gonna be doing this stuff, help you guys feeling better on the bike.